Okay, welcome to the September 7th Town Board meeting. Michael Reichel, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're going to have Reverend Benvenu from United Methodist Church in Riverhead to do our invocation. Reverend Benvenu, would you like us to stand, sit?
You can sit. And if you'd bow your heads with me, please. Holy God, Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we remember that this is a momentous week as we move towards the remembrance of the horrific attacks on this nation 10 years ago. We ask, Lord God, for your presence with us and your blessing on this land. And Lord, we also ask for your presence with us in this room. We pray, Lord, for clear heads and cool thinking. And we pray, Lord God, for your blessing. Keep us mindful that we are about the work of your people here in this place. All this we pray, praising your holy name. Amen.
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 Thank you. That was Reverend Benvenu. Thank you very much from the United Methodist Church right here on East Main Street, Riverhead. Okay, well, we have another special guest, Jada. Jim, you want to get the Jada spec sheet here? Come, let's meet
Maureen.
Jada. Come on, town board. You know how you doing? You walking okay? You look better.
You're a good guy.
Jade is an American Staffordshire Terrier. She's 2 years old. She's a female. She lost her home, is looking for a loving family who can love her the way she knows how to love, and she's really a great dog. Give him a kiss. Well, she's already spayed, she's vaccinated, and she's microchipped, so she's ready to go. Beautiful dog.
So is there anybody in the audience there want Jada?
Mike, I don't think you have a dog in your yard. Really?
She gets along with other dogs.
Come on, no takers here. Look at this dog.
She's very, very sweet. She's a sweetheart. And she's housebroken.
And what's the phone number of the animal shelter?
369-6189.
All right. Well, Jada's available for adoption, and hopefully.
She's a mommy. Is she a mommy?
So we've heard, but no more.
No more mommy.
She's had a hard life. 2 years old, and she's had a hard life.
No, she looks like a nice, friendly dog.
She's really sweet. She's I call her a American Staffordshire Terrier with a golden retriever personality. But if we just dyed her yellow, she could pass.
Well, if anybody is watching, hopefully we find somebody that'll take Jada.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Jada.
And she's doing the tricks.
Well, she knows about the town board meeting, so she's getting real comfortable. Way to go,
Okay,
sweet.
Jada, come on, we're going back. Jada. She likes it here. First time we go, she ever done this?
Yeah.
She likes it.
Let's postpone the meeting.
You and Pete, you want to take that dog home? Well,
I have two just like it, and they're the best.
all right. Before we move any further, I have a announcement. The Riverhead Business Improvement District was awarded a $99,000 grant. I just found out about it a little while ago for the acrylic, is it acrylic? Ice rink downtown. So that is a very good thing. I just walked in the door. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Just heard about it.
It must be very
Walking
recent.
in the door. So it $99,000 to the Business Improvement District. So we will be moving forward with the synthetic ice rink. And Jim, you want to announce for Sunday?
Yes, thank you. This Sunday, as the Reverend pointed out, is our 10-year anniversary for the attacks on our country. Riverhead is having I guess it's more of a procession than a parade, but a procession from the Riley Avenue School to the World Trade Center Memorial Site, which is at the corner of Riley and Edwards Avenue. The procession will step off from the school at 1 o'clock, and then we get down to the World Trade Center. We'll have a memorial service, and remember those who gave their lives that day and those who lost their lives that day that were at the Trade Center. We'd like to have everybody there, if we could, lining the route along Riley Avenue, and then join us at the World Trade Center for a small service of remembrance and for that event. It's this Sunday, of course, so hopefully the tape gets out in time. And keep up on your web pages. I'm sure they'll have it. So.
Can we get the tape on today, tomorrow? We'll get it right on.
Great, thank you. It'll be a nice event. We've got some bagpipers coming and a nice guest speaker. So
And what time are we lining up at Riley?
We'll get Riley Avenue. We're lining up around 12:30. We're going to kick off at 1 o'clock, and the service will immediately follow. So it's only about a 15-minute walk. So by 1:15, we'll have the service at the World Trade Center Memorial. So.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you very much. John?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the town board meeting of August 16th and the special town board meeting of September 1st, 2011. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Oops, sorry. Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay,
Just
applications?
going too
Yep.
short. Under applications, we received for special events from Garden of Eve, their 8th annual Long Island Garlic Festival on Sound Avenue. That's September 24th and 25th. Peconic Bay Region AACA, they're having an automobile show at Halleckville Museum on October 2nd. And IRIE, Scarecrow and Horse Festival at Halleckville Museum, October 8th. And Dark Side Haunted House on Route 25A in Wading River, September 30th through October 31st. Under reports, the sewer district submitted their discharge monitoring report for July. Police department submitted their monthly report for July. Building department submitted their monthly report for August, and that was $34,481.50. Tax receiver, total collections for August, $394,741.72. Under correspondence, we received one email and 72 postcards requesting the adoption of a short-term moratorium for the Wading River corridor.
Is that the same 72 postcards?
No,
They-
these are in addition to the,
New
yes,
72
new
postcards.
72.
Do we
So
know whether
keep
they're the
it-
same people?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if they're the same people sending the same postcards?
You know, I haven't checked all the signatures, to be honest with you, but I think I would hope that they're all new people, but
Well.
you never know. I don't know.
I'm just
you know?
curious.
Never thought about that. Then 4 emails in support of the proposed legislation that the planning board hold public hearings for site plan applications. Also, Nancy Gilbert and Richard Wines, a letter regarding public hearing of 8/16 regarding acquisition of Norfolk Preserve. Nancy Gray, a letter regarding public hearing of 8/16 regarding acquisition of Norfolk Preserve. Sal Mastropolo, letter regarding dangerous situation at corner of Gregory Way and Sound Avenue in Calverton. AMPM Property Services, letter requesting the town board consider code amendments with regard to family use only dwellings.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I didn't, Diane, did
You
that
didn't
one
see
just
that?
come in? I know AMPM is here. I think she's here. If that, can you get a copy? Unless it went, did it come to the office, my office, like in the last day?
You know, I don't know for sure, it was out last week, so I'll have to double
Yeah,
check, but I'll get
I
everybody
don't
a
remember
copy.
All right.
reading that. Okay.
I'll get everybody. a
Michelle, you still here? No, she was here.
See you.
If you could get it to me, that would be, to the board.
Yeah.
I don't
Sure.
think I saw that. Okay, we have 2 public hearings. The first one scheduled to start at 2:05, and 2:05 having arrived, is the consideration of a proposed local law to amend Chapter 101 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, Parking, Standing, Stopping, Parking Prohibited. And John, this is Ostrander Avenue. This come out of the Traffic
Yeah.
Committee?
This is parking on the Ostrander side, the entrance to King Cullen Shopping Center, north where the church is right there. That we're going to prohibit parking close to that intersection, because cars pulling out cannot see to the right. We can't have cars parked up to that intersection. So about 20 feet north will be no parking, at the intersection with King Cullen entrance.
Okay, does anybody wish to be heard on this? Not seeing anybody. I'll close the public comment portion and leave it open. We'll do 9 days till the September 16th, Friday, September 16th, in the town clerk's office. You feel free to make written comments before 4:30 on the 16th. And the second public hearing was scheduled for 2:10, and 2:10 having arrived, is a consideration of a proposed local law to amend Chapter 101 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Zoning Site Plan Review Application Procedure Fees. Mr. Duffy, do you want to introduce this briefly? This is this the this is, right. You want to have Bill do it, or you want to introduce it? I see him sitting here, I figure.
Well, Bill's more familiar with it, so.
Right, Bill, why don't you just introduce this briefly and then take notes.
You gotta spin that around, Bill, I'm sorry, the mic. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is a amendment to Chapter 108 to allow for public hearings on site plans. As I believe the board is aware, most towns do have public hearings on site plans, and the town of Riverhead currently does not. This calls for a two-stage application process whereby there would be a preliminary site plan application made by the applicant. Once that was completed and went through the process and review, there'd be a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, there'd be consideration of a final site plan approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody wish to be heard on this matter? Mr. Danowski.
Pete Danowski, I do represent some clients that come before the board from time to time.
Really?
And I think one of the most important factors to consider in adopting legislation is what do I hear and what does the public hear from those who have businesses in town that look to expand, those that want to come to the town and build a project. And the average question I get is, how long will it take to go through a process in this town? And I think that's probably a standard question in most towns. I differentiate when I speak to clients those applicants that need to go for a special permit. That's a discretionary permit. We could argue about whether there should be findings that could possibly deny people, but at least when you have a site plan that requires no special permit and no variance, you should, as a property owner or a contract vendee, anticipate that you have a right to build. Now, having said that, you have a right to build. I certainly recognize there's a process to consider your architecture, your landscaping, your code compliance, your drainage, and basically to make it the most attractive project business-wise in the town. But I am unable many times to answer that question, how long will it take in the town of Riverhead to process a site plan application? And when I look at this proposed legislation, I see nothing but further prolonging of time periods and a lack of definiteness where there are no default provisions against the town, where if they fail to act, even if there is a time period put forth in the code, that there is no remedy for the applicant. Maybe he can litigate, and that's certainly time-consuming and expensive. So when I look at a two-stage public hearing process on a site plan that I should be able to tell a client allows them to develop as a matter of right, I am concerned we're going to chase business out of town. Now, when assessors in this town look at a piece of property, they certainly look at the zoning on the piece, and they take a look at what could be built on the property. They look at the highest and best use per the zoning code provisions, and they attempt to collect taxes based upon the zoning in place. Certainly, if people have a right to build, that tax bill will increase as opposed to decrease. And people don't mind paying if, in fact, they clearly have a right to build. We're now suggesting that we're going to not just allow for transparency, which I'm in favor of. I think what should happen is business owners, people that own property in a business zone that's subject to site plan review, they should get a thorough review, but it should be prompt. There should be transparency. No one's ever complained about every meeting should be public or at least available for public review. That's not the issue. But the issue here is when you say an applicant must start out by filing a preliminary application, and then the planning department will have to determine whether it's complete. If they determine it's not complete, are we there forever? What if they make no determination and months go by? What's the remedy for the applicant? There's no turnaround against the town in those circumstances. And so now we deem the application complete. Do we get mailed that notice as the applicant? Your application's been deemed complete. Well, then, do I expect that the application will be put before the planning board? It doesn't look that way. It looks like, despite the fact the application is complete, despite the fact you may mail it out to other interested departments, that the planning department could make a decision that said it's not yet ready for the planning board. Planning board hadn't even seen the application, hasn't seen the plan. Even though you have an application that's deemed complete, I mean, it's determined to be complete, not deemed, determined, but the planning department can determine. Complete as it may be, we don't determine the planning board should see it yet. Wow. And I will say this, you've got some of the nicest, most polite, most accommodating people in the planning department. Joe Hall, Karen Gluth, Rick Hanley, who heads the department. They're always available. They're always willing to sit down and talk about the project. We could disagree about procedures or rules or plans, but they're more than accommodating. And I probably pushed the envelope there many times. So the concept that an applicant or a developer, a business owner wanting to expand or build in the town would have to go through a long-winded process is the big concern of most people. And you're saying here, and maybe it's because other towns do it and you feel you must do what other towns do, that you're going to extend this process without limitation. I say without limitation because of the lack of default provisions. You're going to not only have a public hearing at the end, you're going to have several public hearings. That's nice. I appreciate that if I were sitting on a board and someone said, why don't you give the public a chance to have a big public hearing and discuss matters, that's easy to say yes to. What I'm concerned about is the length of time. I would suggest that as we do even today, we can always sit down with planning staff. Almost all of us hire local engineering and surveying firms, or we look to. We sit down with planning staff and say, here's what we're thinking about doing. You're good enough to allow for Tuesday morning meetings with some town representatives here and engineering staff when we want to bring a new project to town. You're very accommodating in that way, and we get a sense of what you want. The local engineering and surveying firms know the rules, know the laws, know the code, know what you like to see. We don't do invasive plants. We try to think about what the architecture should be in an area. So we're geared up to that. Your requirements ought to do a tremendous amount of detail at the preliminary site plan stage. You have this detail at the first time we come in before the planning board. And now you're saying we're not even going to get to the planning board, and it's only going to be preliminary. And then you build into the code that perhaps at some stage the planning board can deny your site plan. deny it. Even though it's a complete application, even though you've been through the process, and even though you say no variance is needed, and even though you say it's not a special permit, it's not a discretionary permit, you have a right to build, but the planning board can somehow deny you. Then you sort of have a little give back, but I don't know what it means. You can proceed to final plan on the denied preliminary plan. Really? What's the meaning of that? I just would ask you to not vote in adoption of this plan. I'll put some further remarks in writing about it. But it seems to me that the process should be, we should be going before the planning staff, submitting our plans, certainly having them look at it for completeness. We should be meeting with the planning board and discussing the plan. And if you want to set a public hearing at the final site plan stage, certainly set the public hearing at the final site plan stage. But again, when the hearing is closed, how many months or years do we wait for a decision? What if you don't decide not to vote? What happens then? I think it's a real concern because we've had a master plan adoption. We've had zoning revisions. Like it or not, and I don't like some things that have happened, but at least when you have a site plan that meets zoning, and your planning staff do this today, they review and review these plans for code compliance. And when you meet the code and you've got a site plan, the only value to your property is if you have a right to a prompt review and approval. If you're not going to give people that, then you're going to render this property valueless. So I'd ask you to consider carefully whether you're really looking at this as a discretionary special permit. Let's have a long process with several public hearings and go through a long-winded process to perhaps say no to somebody who wants to build in the town. I think what's good about the process today is you have professionals reviewing the plan. You're able to get at least hopefully through a process, and I complain about the process today. This is going to be a really long-winded process. Thank you.
Pete, just I would clarify one point, and I think you would agree. Our code doesn't have default provisions now. In fact, our code, this one, at one point, within 10 days of submission, we're going to tell you whether it's complete. That's not.
And if you don't,
and if we don't, you're going to. I don't want to say.
That is the point.
You have a action in mandamus, but what I'd rather you do than write a letter to us, I'd rather you take this code, the way we lawyers mark up contracts, and tell me what you'd like to see in specific spots, so it's easier for you and it's easier for us to say, oh, maybe that makes sense, and mark it up and give us the comments.
And I say this, that sometimes you don't feel that you don't fix that which is not broken, and all I'm saying is we need to have thoroughness, we need to have transparency, but we need to have some reasonable speed in reviewing site plans that don't need special permits and don't need variances.
Let me ask you one other question, and then I'll let Jody, Councilwoman Giglio, speak. Chris Nuzzi adopted, or they went to public hearing for something, Councilman Chris Nuzzi in Southampton, Nuzzi. And it was sent over to me by Ron Farnworth, actually, and I like what they've done. They've sort of codified our Tuesday morning meetings, and they've created for complicated site plans, they've created a board, or the Tuesday morning group, as a codified group that will help applicants get through the process, and they're required to meet twice a month. Now we probably meet more than that, and basically talk with the town board and interface between the town board, the planning board, the zoning board, and this group of engineering, planning staff, and everything. Their job in this is to push these applications either forward or push them out if they obviously don't meet the zoning. Take a look at have Ron, he emailed it to me, maybe email it to you. Take a look at that, because I thought it was a good approach. I thought Councilman Nuzzi was on point. And I haven't sent it to the town attorney to take a look at, but I think it would be a follow-on to this to help you with some of the things that you're talking about, trying to get these things through the process, because we sit here on the town board and we don't know until somebody picks up the phone and yells at us that something's not moving through the process. And this sort of Councilman Nuzzi's code provision and group would be telling the town board all the time. So take a look at that, and I'd like to see what your comments are on this, and I'd like to know sort of informally what you think of Councilman Nuzzi's statute.
I'll have my comments, and certainly I'll mark up what's here.
Thanks.
And
Sure you will.
Pete, I just wanted to also say that we had discussed whether or not we would have the public portion or the public comment period during the preliminary stage or during the final stage. And we thought that it was unfair to have the public come in and want to make changes to a site plan that's already been through the process and at the final stages. That's why we thought the comments by the public should be addressed during the preliminary stages before the planning board deliberates as to what they would like to see at the site, whether it's grapevines or trees. You know, it's...
I think that the difference is that your requirements early on call for tremendous detail. And when that application is deemed complete, it is truly what amounts to a final site plan. And to suggest that we have a second layer of review, preliminary and final, I just don't think is fair. And I think, again, going back to the earliest comment I had, people come to me often, and I grew up in this town, and they say, what do you think? Should I buy this piece of property? What do you think? What are my chances of getting approved? Don't I have a right to the approval? And we review the code, and we review the uses, and we review the layout, and we hire local people to engineering, surveying firms to lay it out, and we meet at the office, and believe me, we twist and turn plans to make them work correctly and meet what I view as planning staff's normal comments and review. So when we submit that application, I mean, we think we're already there. And sure, look at it 10 times to Sunday. I don't care about the thoroughness, other than I like months. I don't like years. And this is going to turn into years. So my concept is get it detailed, get staff reviewing it, pass it all around. Any meeting is a public meeting. You know, have transparency. No one cares about that. But we do care about obstruction, people that want to build nothing in the town, that are opposed to every process, every NIMBY person out there that says we're against this, we're against every project. But that's going to happen. People are going to be opposed to things. People are going to have their opinions. They have a right to their opinions. All I'm saying is I'm looking for some ability to tell people that want to invest in this town that it's a fair process, it's a thorough process, but it's a prompt process. And I think the promptness is what I see missing in this statute.
And that is one of the things, when you understand you don't like the public hearing aspect of it, I think the board wants to have the public hearing, but I think the board is cognizant of the fact that we don't want these things to go on forever. So when you're making your comments within reason, you know, if there's something, I know there is default approvals in certain areas of the town law. Focus on ways for us to make sure that the planning staff and the planning board are moving this through in a timely manner.
Well, you know, it's a catch-all, and it's always been the case, and I thought that's what was abused in the secret process over the years, is this ability to try to deem you incomplete forever, okay? And that's a word of art to say someone's going to review something and determine whether it's complete, all right? The same thing can happen here, but I really do have faith in the employees that work for your town in the planning department, and I don't think they'll act in bad faith. But my point is, this is not a subdivision where you have sketch, preliminary, final, which this is not a special permit where you've determined we're not sure we want the use or not. It's discretionary. We're talking about site plans where you meet zoning and have a right to build what you're submitting. And all I'm saying is, do you really need to go through this layer after layer in several public hearings? If you're going to have a public hearing, have it at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Sid Bale, president of the Wading River Civic
You're the
Association.
president again? Oh, were you absent at that meeting?
I
Congratulations.
went to the bathroom, I believe.
Congratulations, Sid.
Okay, thank you for. First of all, I believe the public has a right to be heard on land use issues that have the potential to impact our environment, our way of life, and community character. I have a lot of respect for the last speaker, Peter Danowski. With this proposed legislation, I don't see a conflict between transparency and the right to build. Going back to the last administration, I won't mention any names in the last administration,
Greg
being
Fisher.
in sensitive times that we're in here. We had a shift from commercial site plan review from the town board to the planning board. And, you know, in the real world, you know, I taught government for a number of years in public schools, and when I taught government at places like Newfield High School, I found out, you know, what I was teaching about.
Gee, I know somebody that went there.
Yes, right. What I was teaching about was basically the national government. And as far as the government closest to us, like local government goes, I didn't know a heck of a lot about it. And a lot of my friends and neighbors even knew less than, you know, I did. And so when you're dealing with, you know, so many of these issues, people are kind of like clueless in things that they believe are going to impact their lives. You know, how do I address these things? We have a huge turnout today, right, at, you know, this meeting. And, you know, in some ways it may be larger than some of your afternoon, you know, turnouts. Now, the avenues for public input and comment, maybe that's the transparency that Peter was talking about, they seem to many of us less clearly defined under planning board review, all right? And the new legislation seems to trying to address that, put us more in line with what some of our neighboring towns could do. Now, I know Peter grew up in Riverhead. I didn't grow up in Riverhead, okay? But I don't think Riverhead is that different than the rest of eastern Long Island. You know, that, you know,
We're better.
We like to believe, but, you know, I'm sure they say the same thing in Southampton and East Hampton.
But they'd be wrong.
And now, some progress has been made on this issue of more transparency, more input. The planning board, who've been receptive to some of these things, and Mr. Supervisor, you yourself raised some of these issues about public comment, and they make that part of their agenda right now, and I think that's a very progressive step. Now, what we're looking for is a codified public hearing process like our neighboring towns, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that's necessarily something that's designed to deny property owners, you know, the rights to develop their land. I know that the RMPC submitted a list of ideas that to help you. You suggested that Peter Danowski mark up the bill, the proposed legislation, et cetera. I just want to talk briefly on two issues. One of the suggestions, and I don't see meeting after meeting. I must be missing something in the legislation that Mr. Danowski is talking about. I agree with Councilman Giglio about the idea of why the hearing was put rather at the beginning rather than at the end of the process. But one of the things that they talk about is, one of the things that we thought was really a good idea was to codify evening meetings. And it was thought in general, in the general discussion with the town board, they would leave it up to the discretion of the planning board. And I think it's really important that these meetings be in the evening, because you want to give I think, the maximum potential for the residents of the town of Riverhead to participate in the process. And it's difficult. I'm a retired guy, okay? You know, I can get here. But like for someone who's working in these, you know, very, very difficult times, to tell the boss they're taking off to go to a 3 o'clock planning board meeting, and it's really important to them, you know, just isn't good. And so this may make things inconvenient for the planning board members, who are all very nice people, by the way. But I think it's really important for the citizens of the town. One other issue that I just briefly want to talk about is the comment period. I think it should be longer than 10 days. I don't want to, you know, upset Mr. Danowski, but it should be somewhat longer, because, like, there will be people who will not be able to get to the public meeting, and maybe they'll find out about it by, you know, watching it on television. All right, whenever it appears on television. They're not on real time, are they?
No, we update it usually every Friday.
Yeah, all right. So, you know, there is a lag,
Right.
right? Some people will get their information from the local papers, you know, Riverhead Local, Times, Review, et cetera. So I think that 10-day period should be extended. Southampton has a 30-day period. Perhaps that's too long. Perhaps that's, you know, more in keeping what it should be. Okay, those are just some suggestions, and I said I don't necessarily see a conflict between transparency and the right to build. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Michelle Janlowitz.
Good evening. Afternoon.
I don't have a problem with the the civic associations commenting, as they have a constitutional right. However, what I do have a problem with is the code, the way it's written. In certain areas, I think it should be clarified that they put down that different forms will be submitted to different agencies, but it doesn't say governmental agencies, and a civic association is not a governmental agency. So it concerns me that the civics are going to be making comments when they're not a governmental agency, and that was just declared unconstitutional by a very well-known attorney in Brookhaven Town.
We don't circulate them to the civic organizations. We circulate them to within our town and to the regulatory agencies.
Okay, I understand that, but the code does not clarify governmental agency. It says
Well, tell me where that is.
in
So,
3 different locations. In
Bill, you know where that is? I mean, it's not, you know where,
I don't know the section numbers off my head, but I know what you're referring to. I think in other sections of the code, it does refer to what agencies would be notified.
yeah, I mean, we circulate to the County Planning Commission, Pine Barrens Commission. You have to
Consulting
submit to the...
engineer who's not necessarily a
correct, but it
government
doesn't say
agency.
governmental agencies in the code, and I'm concerned that it's going to be distributed to the civics, and again, they are not
It's not-
governmental
yeah,
agencies.
And it's not meant, I mean, the civics have a right to have it, but we don't do a coordinated review with civic
Okay, the civics have a
association.
right to obtain it from the
Through the FOIL
town,
of the
but they
press.
do not have a right to have it sent to them.
Right. No, if you go to
clarify it.
6D, where it says further processing,
Yes.
and then if you turn the following page, those are all the agencies that may or may not receive a copy of this from our planning department.
Okay, but if you read further down, it does say other agencies, and it's actually in 3 different locations in the code.
All right, I understand. I mean, I don't consider a civic organization an agency, and that's not meant for that. So, Bill, if we could, I'm sure that's not something that the board, we can clarify that. That's not a problem. The board,
No,
Yeah,
not a
that's-
problem. It's meant, I guess we just called it agencies because it's, the engineer, the consulting engineer is not a governmental agency, it's just an agency that we consult with, or Pine Barrens Commission.
Is quasi-governmental.
Okay, so just to clarify, the civics will have to FOIL for their records. They will not be
Yes.
sent copies of site plan applications.
That's correct.
We'll take a look at it to see, make sure that that our intention, and this is part of the record, that our intention is obviously to send this to governmental agencies. Pine Barrens Commission is sort of a hybrid of that, but that's what the intention is.
I just want to read it was declared unconstitutional this
But
year.
not this, because this is not what we're trying to do.
They are allowed to speak, but they're not allowed to get the applications.
Is that Dick
sent to them.
Shire's case?
No comment. Thank you.
Yes.
I made copies of this,
What, Marty, he's got to make copies for you?
No, I made copies. I said there's copies there.
Make copies.
No, I made copies. Color copies. Martin Sunlowski, Riverhead. What I handed up to you, I'm going to leave this also when I'm done speaking. I'll leave this with Diane. This is a form you can get on the DEC website. It's called the Secret Cookbook, a step-by-step discussion of the basic secret process. Ever since I've been doing work in this town now for...
You sure?
Got one more?
It's okay.
I only
we
have the
can
one I'm
share.
referring to.
It's
Sorry.
okay.
You can share. It's very pretty.
For many, many years, the way the town site plan code was written, I've always felt there's been some shortcomings in it, and that it always had the final, the determination of the type of action as part of the final resolution, which never made sense. You're at a point now where you're looking to rewrite the site plan process for the town. If you follow SECRA, this is a chart that basically is a diagram of SECRA law. This is exactly every step under SECRA, and this book, the SECRA Cookbook, has a step-by-step description of each of these processes. What I did was, on each step, I penciled in what part of the process that could be in the site plan process. For example, on the very first step, when they verify whether it's subject to SECRA, that could be done by the planning department on a preliminary application, and they would make a recommendation to the planning board. The next step would be the planning board's responsibility to actually make a declaration, whether it's a type 1, an unlisted, or a type 2. Now, if it's a type 2 action under SECRA, the bottom item, which means it doesn't have an impact, it would go to ARB, your basic review, and then it would get approved. There should be no public comment. It's totally as of right. It's a small project. It doesn't trigger SECRA. Therefore, it should be done just in accordance with SECRA law. If you set your site plan approval up similar to this chart, it'll make sense for everybody. If it were a type 2, an unlisted or a type 1, then it would require either a partial or a full EAF by the applicant. That would go back to the planning department for distribution to all involved agencies, county, DOT, et cetera. And then at that point, you would have your public input. After it's declared, to be an action that will have an impact, the draft environmentals are done, the initial review is done by planning, then you could have your public input published and gain public's input before you then go back to the applicant based on the information gathered and have them make changes. This way you go through the review process, the public has their say, that goes back to the applicant, and they are then able to react to it, revise it, resubmit it. At that point, as far as reviewing and accepting the environmental impact study, that would again go under the planning board review at work sessions, et cetera. And then as part of the SECRA, there is a public comment and a SECRA scoping hearing that can also be included. That would be a second public hearing for, let's say, a type 1 action. Then after that, the review would be finalized, the final documents would be accepted, the applicant would get their final marching orders, so to speak. They can make a revision, it goes to the planning board, and it's either approved or denied. Instead of going through all these processes in Southampton Town and other towns and this and that, just follow SECRA. The state has the law written right here. And if you just look at it this way and you insert the public hearings under a type 1, 2 public hearings, under an unlisted, 1 public hearing, under a type 2, no public hearings, because that's an as-of-right application. Just set up your zoning to follow secra. It's all laid out for you by the state. You can't miss. It's part of the state law. I don't understand how come townships take their zoning code and when they write something such as a site plan review, they don't structure it around the adopted law of secra. It just, to me, would make sense. You should know whether it's a type 1 unlisted or type 2 right after you submit your application. There should be a resolution by the planning board declaring the type of action it is right up front. And then that sets the stage for the rest of the process. I think everybody who develops projects would be happy with it because they'd know exactly where they stand up front. If the town had a site plan checklist like this, they could follow the checklist right down, check off each step of the way, and the public would have an appropriate time to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, can you come up there? I want to ask you a question. Show that to Rick. I want to ask Rick some questions. Not to put you on the spot, Rick, but we will. Actually, I think this might be too cumbersome in some respects.
Just as a comment, we are very familiar with state law in my department. We've been following it for about 25 years, so this is nothing new.
No, but what's interesting about it is, could we do a checklist or a flow chart like this so the applicants know? Now, I wouldn't codify it necessarily, but could we in-house do a checklist once we come up with whatever form of this public hearing or site plan review process the board comes up with? We could create this flow chart so people would know. And that's not,
in terms of a design professional you were talking about?
In terms of a design professional or the lay public.
I mean, we could insert a secret flow chart in our application forms, but we have a site plan checklist presently.
Well, I mean, as part of the review,
it's the lead agency's job, really, to make all these secret decisions. It's not a function of the design professional, the drawings. What we try to do in my department is to utilize the review process as a way to mitigate environmental impacts through the process. That's why we wait till the end of the process to make some of these decisions.
Because if you did it up front, they'd all be type 1s.
We would have possible, we'd have EISs for most of these projects, which we don't want to do. So.
Right, when you start looking at traffic flows and things of that nature.
So we use the process to mitigate environmental impacts, to get to the point where we can neg deck most of these site plans.
All right, I mean, I thought that was going to be the answer, but I would like to see, I know you have the checklist, but when we adopt this with the public hearing, let's revise that checklist or maybe throw a flow chart in there so some people like to look at it that way.
Sure.
Marty, do you want to re-comment on that?
No, I'll just leave this with Diane. I just think that the structure of the code, the structure of the site plan review, I just don't understand why the structure of it, each step written in the code, doesn't follow this structure that's part of SECRA.
I actually think we go faster than the SECRA process.
Not really, because you're not talking about a full environmental review. It could be a short EAF. It could be the one-page EAF if it's a type 1.
Right.
And the town could accept it and move right on.
Right.
So that's inaccurate to say it's going to be lengthy and all that. Basically, what you're doing is going through it and you're knocking off each step of the way, and it's a very orderly and very clear and concise.
But when somebody comes in and it turns out to be a type 1, and through the process, they mitigate the impacts, you'd better off waiting till the end because it could be neg-decked or something along those lines based on the impacts through the design process. I think that's what Rick is saying is.
Right.
I think that
unnecessarily.
SECRA, I think you got the cart before the horse. The neg deck is what triggers the mitigation. Okay, you're talking about the neg deck being a result of people coming in with comments. That's not the case. You neg deck it first, then you let the public comment, then you mitigate the issues and approve it. That's the bottom line. It's not that you let's get their comments and say, oh, gee, this is no good because we got all these comments. Sorry, you're neg decked. It doesn't work that way. It should be decked up front where it may have a potential impact. Then you gather the information, what the impacts may be. You allow the applicant to mitigate those impacts, and then you approve their project. That's the way I think it should go. Not wait until you're basically holding all the cards up your sleeve until they get to the end of the process.
I think you'd have more impact statements. That's what I think Rick is saying. You'd have more potential form in.
It doesn't say long
LEAF,
form. It could be a short, it could
but
be a long.
You potentially could have more.
You could potentially have more short ones too. Just a one-page form. If you fill it out, it goes in the file, you move on to the next step.
All right.
It really could be made a lot easier than you're making it sound.
I think that what I'm hearing from both you and Mr. Danowski is that there has to be some predictability and certainty of the outcome. And if you know up front that based on your proposal that you're doing this, that this is how big it's going to be, this is the number of cars that are going to be coming, that a declaration can be made at that time rather than at the end of the process. And then there's some predictability because you can move forward based on that secret determination.
Correct. And right where the issues come up, where that you want to gather information about the impacts that should be mitigated and addressed, that's the appropriate time for the public to come in to play, because they may have input on these could be a negative impact that we foresee. They put their input in. That goes to the planning board or the town board, whoever's the lead agency. They present it to the applicant. They then respond to it. Okay, and then ultimately, after that comment and possibly a second public hearing, whatever it is, the applicant addresses those issues, and then ultimately it's up to the planning board as the lead agency to then go ahead with the approval. But at least this way, it would be pretty structured. You'd know up front, and you're not waiting until the end to find out whether it's type 1, type 2. You should know that right up front. Then we'll go right through the process. Okay. And it really can be easy. It could be a one-page environmental form if it's not that big of a deal. That's more where you get it to referral to all the other involved agencies. And you refer it out to everybody, you get all the comments back, you do the one page or even the long EAF is only 20-something pages, you review it, Joe Hall reviews it, comes back with his comments, you finalize it, you're done. If there is a major project that's going to require an environmental impact study, then so be it. Then that's why SECRA's there, to make sure that that study is done when it's appropriate.
All right, thanks, Marty. Next.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. My name is Jen Hartnagel, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Group for the East End. For the record, Group for the East End is Eastern Long Island's largest professionally staffed environmental organization. We've been working on environmental and community planning issues throughout the region since 1972. I'm here today to first thank the board for allowing the proposal to reach the public hearing stage, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment today. Secondly, I would like to lend our strong support to the legislation. From our perspective, providing the opportunity for public comment within the planning review process is one of the most vital components of intelligent and balanced community planning, period. And we truly believe and have experienced this within the other towns that we work in, that there's nothing more valuable and constructive within the planning process than the institutional knowledge and the input that residents, business owners, and the community can add to the planning board's decision-making process. Whether it be critiques, support, recommendations, it's all helpful. And despite what's been said today, there's a lot of discretion in many of these site plans. It is not a cut and dry decision, and that's why the public input is so important. Because in the end, the entire purpose of the exercise is not to further polarize the different groups or different interests, but it's to work together to create a collaborative process that in the end is going to produce the best site plan for not only the applicant, but the community as a whole. Because we all live in this community at the end of the day. Having said that, I have 3 additional specific recommendations that I would like the town board to consider that are specific to the legislation. And I just wanted to echo what Sid said earlier about the timing of public hearings. We feel it is extremely important that the hearings are held at night so that the majority of the people can come if they wish to. Because during the day, people work. You're not going to get the show. And why have the public hearing process if no one's going to show up? Secondly, the pre-submission conference section, it's Section A of the legislation. I think opening up the pre-submission conference to the public is an extremely positive addition to the process, and I think it's very helpful as a resident or an organization or as a business to learn about the application in the very early stages. However, in order to participate, we need to know that they're taking place. And right now, there's no agenda that would allow us to know that they're going to be holding these pre-submission conferences. So I would like to recommend that the conferences are posted on an agenda, and the agenda is either posted on the website or emailed out to people prior to the meeting. And lastly,
Hold on
yes.
one second. Rick, that's something, I mean, you don't have to codify that. That's something we can do as a policy, right? I mean, we do add a lot of people to the pre-submission conference that sort of walk in. I think we added somebody yesterday.
I think there's a confusion between pre-submission conference and our Tuesday conferences. I
Well,
think Bill wrote into the code the requirement for a pre-submission conference, or is it?
It's not a requirement, it's that they may or may not. Yeah, we changed that. But it is the same thing as our Tuesday morning meetings that we have, the pre-submission conferences are, where they would be put on here. And we do have an agenda that is prepared for that, and the supervisor is correct, where we put people on last minute. But I don't see a problem with putting that up on the website, do you?
No.
Okay, thank you, that would be helpful.
All right, let us know if it happens.
Okay, I
Rick,
will.
we want that to happen. Put it on the website.
And what's the last thing?
Okay, the last thing, Section H, the effective date. I would like to strongly recommend that all current site plans that have not yet received final approval and are still within the review process be subject to the public hearing. I think given the immensity of public interest concerning a number of site plans currently being reviewed, combined with the spirit of trying to create a more open government in Town Hall, I think it is extremely important that these hearings are held on these applications. And really, what's the harm in that? To conclude, I want to thank you for considering my recommendations, and I hope it's not too presumptive, but I would like to thank you for voting to adopt this legislation moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Dominique Mendez, Riverhead Neighborhood Preservation Coalition. First, I'd like to commend the board for moving forward towards requiring the planning board to have public hearings for commercial site plans and for including us, the RNPC, in this process up to this point. If this yes.
You're welcome.
Oh, if this legislation is passed in something close to its current form, it would be an important step towards residents being treated as true stakeholders in the review process of projects that may have a significant impact on nearby homes and neighborhoods. Of course, allowing the public to participate in this manner does not guarantee that our comments, concerns, and suggestions will truly be considered. For that to happen, our local government must overcome whatever institutional resistance there is at this time to allowing public input to have real impact on these projects. We have every expectation that this will diminish in time, and of course, we'll continue to work to make that a reality. Now I have a few suggestions about this legislation. One, I definitely take exception to Section H, the effective date, which Jen just mentioned. What it states for the audience is that the requirements of subsection A and B of this section shall only be applicable to applications received after the effective date of those subsections, and no applications received prior to the enactment of subsections A and B shall be subject to preliminary site plan application or public hearing process. The public needs to understand that the legislation, as it is currently written, prohibits there being public hearings for the most controversial site plans, including 2 retail proposals on Sound Avenue and several more in Wading River. These are the most controversial plans in recent years, and I know of no sensible reason why these public hearings should be intentionally prohibited. Why should this legislation specify that no application prior to the enactment of subsection A and B shall have a public hearing when even the current code does not prohibit the town from holding a public hearing on any site plan? The clause that begins with "and no application received prior" should be struck, as it is more restrictive than the current code. It is vitally important that public hearings be held for all commercial site plans currently in review. That can easily be accomplished. Many site plans will not have reached the stage that would trigger a public hearing, so the hearings can be scheduled when they reach that point. That's the ones in the pipeline now. Others that may be farther along in the process, to a point which might have been deemed to have passed a preliminary approval, will have to be scheduled for a public hearing. My second point is that public hearings should be required to be held in the evening, and you've heard about this. Most people work days, and scheduling these hearings during the day will only serve to keep turnout low on a public hearing. I know of several people who wanted to be here today at this public hearing: Bill Toder from the NFEC, Eric Beager Biegler of the Sound Park Heights Association, and Joan Vogt of Wading River. I don't think Georgette can make it 'cause she's in school. She was in school. Georgette Keller of the Jamesport Civic, I was just looking for. And so it's the time that made it impossible for them to attend this. Scheduling hearings for evenings will truly enable public participation, which is what this is all about, and it should only delay progress of these plans maybe 2 weeks. And they already do have every other meeting in the evening. So they have a monthly meeting in the evening, so they could just change the schedule so that they have the public hearings on those dates, realizing that most of the site plans, public hearings would be extremely short. Many of them will happen without anyone commenting, and others, of course, will be longer. Last time we discussed this, the board suggested that this be left to the planning board's discretion, whether or not to have an evening meeting. I don't think this is either practical or fair. Truth is, we were rejected the one time we did ask the planning board to move their discussion on Great Rock to a night meeting last October. So we had a bunch of interested residents who wanted to attend, but they couldn't. I have no reason to believe the planning board will accommodate the public in the future unless they're compelled to, at least in this regard. Besides, the public will only find out that a site plan is ready for a public hearing after the public hearing is announced. At that point, accommodating a night meeting would mean spending the money to republish the rescheduled hearing and would cause confusion for the general public because you've already announced it and they're going to announce it again. So it's just not practical. It doesn't work. Number 3, I'd like to remind you about the fact that currently there's nothing in the process about covenants and other restrictions. In the past, plans have been approved. Unfortunately, they violated covenants, and I'm sure other restrictions.
Hold on that point. Didn't we put that in the legislation that they had to provide copies of covenants?
Did I not see it, and is it in there?
Amendment, the following section has a different code amendment to section, I believe, 132.
But we're taking care of that. It's just not part of this.
Right, I wanted to...
Just push that one forward, too.
Right.
Yeah, we took care of that one.
You are going to be taking care of that soon?
It's not this one.
There's another place where you might want to address it here, and it's in the, I'm skipping ahead, under Planning Department review, that it may be appropriate to put that out. Just think about it, if it also belongs in the Planning Department review as part of the normal review process.
Yeah, I think we looked at it and it was more appropriate under the other section.
Just to consider those things. And we're talking, for the public, we're talking about covenants, easements, and deed restrictions. There may have been those things that one would think would preserve balance, or, if the town is supposed to have an easement, or there's a covenant that prohibits that. In the past, no one necessarily knew about it. It wasn't formally in the process. And so it maybe didn't matter that there was a covenant prohibiting something because no one ever reviewed that.
Bill, we can get that section 190. It's 192, is that what? 132?
108.32, I think. 132? Oh, I have a 32 right now.
The code requires that the planning department make sure the application complies with 132, and we're going to amend 132 to...
All right, can we get that one on, soon?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's upon determining that a preliminary site plan application is complete, and it's only complete if that checklist of items has been met, and this is included in that checklist.
Right, and not just that they're provided by the applicant, right, but that it's verified that everything has been, and that, an applicant may have a reason that they wouldn't necessarily want to provide you with covenants that restrict them from doing things. So you'd need to check that there is the existence of that or not, and you'd also need to verify that what they have given you is accurate.
Get a certified title report.
Yeah, that's what the supervisor recommended,
Great.
Which I thought was a better idea than the actual document itself, is a listing of all the covenants and restrictions or easements that have been recorded against the property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So finally, I'd just like to thank the members of this board for moving towards opening up this process to the public. And I hope you will seriously consider making some revisions to this legislation based on the issues I and the other members of local civic and environmental groups are raising. With this in mind, I'm submitting a copy of my suggestions now.
Thank you.
Oh, and one last thing, by the way, please feel free to check if the postcards are duplicates. I'm pretty confident that the postcards received from people on the moratorium on Wading River are not
I'll know when I start
multiple.
knocking on doors.
Please do that. You've received hundreds of them, and I'm fairly confident that they are each signed by a different person. Some of them business people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, sir.
Board members, Pete Scalzo, Motorsports Management Group. A couple of weeks ago, I was very happy to see on television a segment on a TV show called Top Gear, and part of the segment was filmed here.
Mr. Scalzo, we're talking, this is a public hearing for site plan review only.
Oh, not open to the public on this?
No, it's only site plan review.
Will it be open after the meeting?
Yes.
Oh, I'm
End of
sorry,
meeting.
apologize.
Yes.
Thank you. Phil Barbato.
How you doing, Mr. Barbato?
Neighborhood Preservation Coalition. Just want to thank the board for considering this important legislation, and I hope you'll consider all the comments and pass it swiftly, because we need to start including the public in this process. Up till now, it's been a one-sided operation, and this will make it truly an open process, which will improve the town for future generations. I've also been asked to provide to you the testimony of Bill Toder, who's the president of the North Fork Environmental Council, who could not be here for the afternoon meeting, if that's okay with you. I'll just read his statement.
Do you have a written comment?
I have
copy as
copies.
well? Okay.
The North Fork Environmental Council supports the proposed changes to Riverhead Town Code to better promote public participation in planning board reviews. These changes will create better awareness and understanding of matters which come before the planning board, as well as create an atmosphere of inclusion rather than exclusion, and a process of openness and transparency. If shaped properly, this new process will help protect the North Fork's natural resources and way of life for the benefit of all, today and in future generations. The NFEC does have a few points of clarification it wishes to present for your consideration. Number one, item 5, paragraph F states that, quote, the planning board shall receive written comments for 10 days following the close of the public meeting, end quote. There are three things in this item which should be better defined. The first one, A, would be language should be added to the proposed code to detail what happens to such written comments. For example, and Mr. Toder suggests some writing, some wording here. Quote, written comments from the public received in a timely manner will be made part of the written record. All such materials will be made available to planning board members so that review of these materials will be part of the normal review and evaluation process, end quote. So there's some words for your consideration.
Hold on for a second. Bill, wouldn't they automatically be part of the record if we're leaving the hearing open
Yes, that's the reason for leaving the hearing open.
for written comments? So they would be part of the record.
Okay.
That clears that up. There can be no change to that as far as I'm concerned. That's part of it. So that's great. Well, it's
Okay.
one.
Great. The second one there, item B, would be the proposed revision should make clear how written comments from the public can be submitted and the appropriate contact information. And such information should be included on all planning department communications, such as on all applications and public notices. For example, and here Mr. Toder has some words to suggest, quote, written comments from the public can be submitted in the following forms and manner: email with an email address listed, letter, mailing address, and fax with a fax number.
Hold on. Would that be something that we could have, I know I keep having Bill and Rick jump up, and I know you're not. Jump up there for a second, Bill. Probably should stand by the microphone so because get a record of this. Normally, when we do this, do we have to codify this, or would we just have this part of the submission package? In other words, when Rick does a submission, just the submission checklist, could we do it in that fashion? Because I'm hesitant to use email, truthfully. I know everybody loves email, but just because you hit the send button doesn't mean anybody on the other side has time to read it
or that it didn't go to spam mail or anything else. I mean, it's, I would just say that any written comment should go to the town clerk, which would be distributed to all members of the planning board. Because any correspondence on our public hearings that are submitted to the town clerk, we all receive copies of that correspondence. So
But would
if
you
it's
do it to the
submitted,
town clerk or the planning board clerk?
well, once the application is deemed complete, and if a civic organization wanted to foil for a copy of that, they would go to the town clerk to foil it, because now we're directing the planning board upon completeness to file a copy with the town clerk, so
Okay,
they
so
would.
here, this would, now, you're right, we
should
have to
probably go
clarify,
to-
because it wouldn't go to the
foil
town clerk,
the-
it would go to the planning board clerk.
The planning board application should go to the clerk to the planning board.
Right.
The
It
town
would-
board site plans, it should probably go to the town clerk.
Right.
That'd probably be less confusing.
So, suffice it to say, we're probably gonna have another public hearing on this public hearing.
Okay.
But, so we need to clarify that aspect of it, that it would go to the planning board clerk for planning board and the town clerk for town board site plan applications. That's a good point.
Okay.
Bill, we have to change that.
All right.
As far as written, I think it has to be submitted in a hard copy. I mean, it's gotta be a hard copy. We can't have emails. It's just not, I know, I'm a dinosaur trying to hold everybody back.
Yeah, I think the NFEC comment was to specify how it should be submitted.
And if we say written to the town clerk or to the town, I think that clarifies it. Okay?
Okay.
C.
All right, C is in addition to contact information, the revised code should also spell out any timing issues for receipt and acceptance of all public comments. For example, and this is suggested language again, faxes, emails, and letters, or whatever you choose, through the U.S. Postal Service, courier service, or delivered in person, must be received in the planning department office no later than, and he specifies the time, 3 p.m. on the regular business day, 10 days from the date of the public hearing, in order for the comment to be made part of the public record.
Bill, we could probably tighten this up a little bit, but it has to be by mail. I'm not, mail or hand delivered.
As long as we have a postal service in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope so. Such specifics can only help all parties help make the process more effective and efficient. Then the second comment is item H again. Paragraph 1 is not in keeping with the spirit of creating an atmosphere of inclusion and a process of openness and transparency. There is no reason why all applications, even those currently in the pipeline, cannot be subject to these new provisions. Public input should be encouraged and not arbitrarily restricted, especially since these changes are being considered in reaction to what projects are currently being considered for the town. And lastly, the NFEC believes that for these proposed changes to be most effective, public meetings must be held at a time that allows the greatest level of participation. As many interested parties, whether they be neighbors or members of concerned groups like the NFEC, work in jobs from 8 to 5, and that keeping such jobs is especially important during these difficult economic times, we ask that the planning board look to hold public hearings in the evening, again in keeping with the spirit of creating an atmosphere of inclusion and a process of openness and transparency. The NFEC supports the move to public hearing and encourages the planning department and town to take the time to make sure that the new code encourages public awareness, understanding, and participation. And it's signed Bill Toder, President, NFEC. Thank you very much.
I will make another comment, and Rick, step up to the podium so we can get this part of the record. I guess it makes sense. It seems to me, originally, I like the idea of day meetings and night meetings, because if you look up at the makeup of a lot of this town, you've got a tremendous number of business people that come to afternoon meetings that don't come to the daytime meetings. Marty Sanlewski would be one of these people that, he is a resident, but he comes to the afternoon meetings. And I like the idea of having either or, because it is a different makeup. But how, if we did do an evening meeting, is that going to require the public hearings at an evening meeting? Is that going to unnecessarily delay anything? That's what I don't want.
I think there would be a certain amount of delay, yes. The planning board meets the first Thursday of the month in the evening and the third Thursday in the afternoon. Our thought was to just try to keep these public hearing processes going by having the ability for the planning board to
Twice a month.
use its discretion if it's a non-consequential site plan or innocuous site plan, we would hold it
Right.
in the afternoon. I think the planning board has the ability to discern which site plans the public is more interested in, and I'm certain that the chairman would schedule those for the evening meeting.
All right, I mean, it's no different
I
than
think
what
we're
we
all
do.
reasonable people here. I don't know that it has to be codified.
Yeah, it's no different than what we do. I mean, it's really not. All right, thanks, Rick.
Yeah, that would make a little more sense had the one time that we asked for it to be an evening meeting on something that everyone knew was of definite interest to the residents. They didn't deny us that request. So that's the history of it. So that doesn't make me feel overly confident that anything's going to be different on that, and when it's up to their discretion as it was. And I think the reason was told to me is there might be some overtime, like an hour or two of an employee. And
Well, we
they
don't
knew there
allow
was
that anymore.
right. So they knew there was interest, and yet they denied it.
I think that what the supervisor says makes sense, and that there are people that prefer to come to the day meetings versus the evening meetings. But I'm sure that if there was a public hearing on a day meeting and that there was a lot of community input that wanted to be heard, and they sent letters saying, "Can you please adjourn this to an evening meeting?"
That's what we
then the
did.
planning board would do that.
And that's what I did. I wrote a formal letter request saying we had a lot of people, and they denied it, and they held it during the day, and a lot of people couldn't show up. That's the history of it. Happened in October. I can give you the back and forth on that.
We don't have hearings yet.
Right, it wasn't a hearing, but it was a meeting that we wanted to attend that was of public interest, and they. That's right.
Right. Yeah,
It was a
I understand.
meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Okay.
to say
So
we're gonna
that
have
would
public
be-
meetings once a month, I mean, that's, taking away from the process.
Well, you would just balance. You would have the hearings on that night, which would mean that those evening meetings would be more geared towards hearings, and then you take some of the business that would have been done every 2 weeks and
But
push it
didn't
off. So that would,
We have a policy now that you have a public comment portion in the beginning of each meeting.
yes,
So you could still stand up and talk.
that does help.
And I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
I don't know that it's dissimilar to what the town board does now.
That's actually not, I just was responding to that, but I also wanted to talk about the email again, because as you know, I communicate a lot.
Really?
Yeah, really. To the town board and to the different administrators, like Diane, for example, a town clerk. And I often do use email. And I think it works when I send the email and it's copied, that it gets copied, and it's a quick way. And I think it might work for the planning staff. I know, Sean, you know.
I'm up to date now.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
The
But I know.
problem with the emails, Dominique, is they get spammed.
Right.
You hit the send button. If somebody hits something wrong, it doesn't, you don't know, maybe you do know it doesn't go, you don't. U.S. Postal Services work forever. Plus,
Mhm.
you could take your email, print it, and drop it in the mail. I just think it's more appropriate to have a written copy. Plus, an email can be, I don't want to say doctored, but, a letter is a little bit more difficult to change around than an email probably is.
Right, and we're
Right,
requiring
instead
the
of PDF.
applicant to send out certified letters to the property owners and not allowing them to do it via email,
Okay.
so I think that, do you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like the process has to work
Okay.
the same both ways.
Mhm. I just wanted to mention it because it seems to be the easiest process so far with me working with the staff here. So I wasn't sure why it would be so different. And people often rely on email, but I guess I understand
Some
your
of us
point.
are trying to hold you all back. George and I are trying to hold you all back.
I'm not sure how to take that, but okay.
Thank you.
You heard it first.
Does anybody else wish to be heard on the subject? Okay, we're going to leave this open for written comment by U.S. Postal Delivery to September 16th at 4:30 p.m. in the town clerk's office. So if you have any written comments, submit them there. And if you send them to me by email, sometimes I actually print them and give them to Diane to make them go in. But written, U.S. Postal Service by the 44-cent stamp. It is 44 cents, right?
Yes, it
44
is.
cents.
Okay. Sal. What's a good word, Sal?
Resolution 677.
Okay, hold on.
Ah, way back there.
It's good when Sal starts with a high number.
The first whereas says a call-in seasonal clerk, but this resolution is not consistent with other resolutions that are passed, because usually there's a statement that says being available at the pleasure of the town board, and there's usually a mention of total number of max hours worked per week.
No, we don't do that for the call-in clerks. These people, the ones that, and I don't know exactly what, Tara, do we know, I don't know exactly what this person does, but we get people that come in for 1 hour and do, I'm gonna make it up, jazzercise, or a class or something like that, and that's all they come in for. Nobody at the,
Well, let me ask a question. This is a call-in clerk, not a part-time clerk.
Call it
Right.
seasonal. So
It's called a seasonal clerk.
It's a seasonal class, but
It must be a special, because of the salary they're paying. This must be a special,
Like yoga or
Well, I didn't
Zumba.
mention the salary, but that's what caught my attention.
yeah, no,
because
no,
they're
it's not.
professionals, and a lot of
Tara's
times,
not here.
if
Joe,
they don't
can
have
you
the
say to
sign up, they
Tara-
don't have the class.
Tara, do we know what Stephanie Janicek is being hired as? 677?
That's the recreation?
Recreation.
I can find out.
All right, I'll find out. My recollection, it was a,
Yeah, it's a specialty type
Zumba. What is
person
Zumba?
that's called an, Zumba is like Latin dancing.
Yeah, it could be like a dance thing we're offering, and it's at one. That's what I figured it was dance.
No, it says a
677
call-in seasonal clerk.
for $22 an hour.
Okay, I'll find out.
I think that's more than we pay the town board.
it has to be for a special, whether it's a,
We'll find out before we adopt it.
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Dance class or something.
Position of clerk too, it says.
680. The fourth whereas, include the word include after does not in the second line.
Nor does it.
And does not include walkways or entrances. The fourth whereas, the second line,
Joe,
the
this
third
is
word
yours.
should
The
be
service
include.
only provides salt and sanding of the parking lots and does not include walkways, entrances. That's correct. We're not sanding the fire department's walkways, entrances.
And word include. So put include, right?
We're not doing that. Okay, you're right. Does
683.
not. You got that, Diane?
The second whereas, the second line says, contemplated abandoning efforts.
683.
Yeah. This is authorizes payments to Ivy Acres.
Yes.
We went from contemplating abandoning efforts to paying or to asking to pay him $19,902.23 for 2011 landscape items. My question is, shouldn't something like that be bid out? I mean, how do we totally disregard the bid process and now we're going to authorize $19,000 to this guy?
Point well taken.
Okay. And 686, the second whereas, strike the last four words. I think you should strike the last four words. Now, therefore, be it. That usually precedes resolved.
I'm sorry, what was the number?
686, the second whereas, the last four words in the second whereas.
It's in both, whereas.
Therefore be.
Second and third. Be it. No, you're saying that the words now therefore
Yeah,
be
be
it
it,
shouldn't be in the whereas provisions. So you strike the one that's in
Got
the
it.
second.
Right.
whereas,
Yes.
And the one that's at the beginning of the third, at the end of the third should be made.
That's fine.
Preceding the, well, that should precede the now therefore be it resolved.
Right, that's exactly right.
Should be a separate paragraph. So that now therefore be it resolved, that's at the end of the third whereas, could come out of that paragraph and be inserted into the paragraph
the
that
resolve.
starts before the resolve.
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter that much. I mean,
Well, it makes no sense in the second one. That's my
Yeah, now
point.
therefore be
No
it
question,
whereas,
I
yeah,
understand.
that makes sense.
Right.
That's
Oh,
it.
yeah, I see it. Yep.
Yeah, you want it out there.
That's cut and paste.
Yeah.
Written
Thanks,
like-
Sal.
Written like a.
Anybody else have comments on resolutions? Okay, Diane, let's take it off.
we go.
Resolution 662.
Recreation fund budget adjustment, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter, yes.
Yes. I'm
Res-
sorry.
That's a resolution adopted. Resolution 663.
The general fund budget adjustment, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
No.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 664.
New well construction, Plant 15, the capital project is a budget adjustment. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 665.
Water extension number 89, Peconic Sportsman's Club capital projects, budget adjustment, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 666.
General fund engineering, budget adjustment, so moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 667.
Authorization to donate fixed assets, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 668.
Authorization to donate fixed assets. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 669.
Authorizes the supervisor to execute an extension to a grant agreement with New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for funds to support the Calverton Recreational Facilities Phase 2. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 670.
This authorizes town clerk to post and publish the attached notice to bidders for Miamog Park construction project.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
I'm
second.
sorry. You were supposed to read that.
Go ahead.
Well, I know, I started, then
Oh.
you jumped in.
Go ahead, you
So
seconded.
I'll second it.
Yeah, switch it around.
Okay.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Huh?
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
You can read the next.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 671.
Appoints temporary groundskeeper, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 672.
Appoints temporary part-time groundskeeper. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 673.
Ratifies the appointment of an assistant town engineer. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
I'm gonna get it right. Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 674.
Approves the transfer of a public safety dispatcher, so moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
It's unfortunate, I'm sorry to see Eric leave, but he's moving on to green pastures, so yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 675.
This grants a special use permit petition of Vertical Line Apparel Incorporated, so moved.
And seconded.
I didn't get to read this.
There's one
Does it
typo
say
on
in
the
here?
first paragraph.
Yeah, in the last
There's one
one.
typo on the first paragraph on this one. I don't know if you want to change it. It says, existing outdoor sports filed. It should be field or facility. Fourth
Which one?
line. The first
I'm
whereas.
gonna have to get reading glasses. I'm having a tough time sitting here
The first
reading.
whereas, the fourth sentence, the first word, it says filed.
Outdoor sports filed.
I would think that should be field or facility.
Outdoor sports field.
Okay, you have that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Was this just for the outdoor sports facility, or were they talking about the indoor sports facility being used as also what it was?
I believe
To
the
allow
indoor.
principal
Just the
indoor and outdoor?
No, just the
I
outdoor.
believe
Just the
I
outdoor.
believe the indoor zone, separate
Yeah, we've only talked about the outdoor.
Okay. So it's just the outdoor, okay.
Did you second it?
Yep, I
Okay.
seconded.
Okay.
I think we already called it. We're stopping her.
Moved and
I
seconded,
seconded.
vote please.
Okay. Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 676.
Awards bid for food products, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 677.
Appointment of a full-in seasonal clerk to the Recreation Department. So moved.
And seconded.
Tara, did you get the information?
Yes, I did. It's a call-in seasonal clerk for their brochure. She's a graphic designer. It's a 2-week position, and her estimate is about 10 hours. This was Danielle Dahl's job.
Okay.
And since, remember last year we had to farm it out because she wasn't here, so what they decided to do is just bring somebody in for
10 hours.
5 hours to 2 weeks.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So it's moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 678.
Approves a stipulation of agreement, so moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
No.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
No.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 679.
Commemorating the 10th anniversary of September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States, proclaiming September 11th, 2011 as Patriot Day in the town of Riverhead, New York. So moved.
Oh, read the whole thing. Go ahead, Jim.
What happened?
Please read the resolution out loud. Tara said for me to do it, but
Okay.
you're the man. Read the
All
resolution.
right, whereas
out loud.
America's view of the world changed forever the morning of September 11th, 2001, when the deadliest acts of terrorism ever launched against the nation killed thousands of innocent people in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. And whereas we are forever grateful to the rescue, law enforcement, military, emergency personnel, and other citizens who selfishly risked their lives in response to the attacks to reach those in need and those who endured the physical and emotional strain of the recovery operation. And whereas we are especially proud of those who answered their nation's call and tirelessly helped search for survivors and recover remains amid the World Trade Center's maze of twisted steel and debris. And whereas since that fateful morning, the United States has been engaged in a global war on terror, an attempt to root out those intent on bringing harm to our nation and its citizens, our strength, heroism, and unity will become this nation's resolve to confront terror and leave behind a legacy of peace. And whereas as we reflect on the 10th anniversary of this tragic day, we pause to remember the horrific events of September 11th, 2001, paying tribute to the innocent victims and expressing gratitude to those who courageously responded in its aftermath. And whereas days of prayer and remembrance have been set aside to remember the thousands of lives lost and the innocent men, women, and children whose lives have been forever changed by those senseless acts. And whereas September 11th, 2001 reminds us that all Americans must stand together as we continue to heal our wounds and remain committed to defending our nation's freedom. Those whom we lost will forever hold a cherished place in our hearts and in the history of our great nation. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Riverhead commemorates the 10th anniversary of September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks on the United States and hereby proclaims September 11th, 2011 as Patriot Day in the town of Riverhead, New York. And be it further resolved that all town hall departments may review and obtain a copy of this resolution from the electronic storage device, and if needed, a copy of the same may be obtained in the office of town clerk. So moved.
Moved. You get a second?
Nobody wants to
And seconded.
Nice. Good reading. Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
I normally like to pre-read things for every. Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 680.
Can I just, back to resolution number 678, it says approves a stipulation of agreement, and we don't have a copy of the stipulation of agreement attached to this, so we don't know what exactly it is that we're agreeing to.
Because it's personal.
What do you
But
want to
we
do?
can have
Okay,
it.
we can have it.
I wanna recall this, because I think this should be tabled
You
until
want
we
to
actually
rescind
see that.
stipulation?
Make a motion to rescind it.
Yes, rescind it,
Okay.
and then.
Is there a second on the motion to rescind?
I'll second motion to rescind.
You made the motion to rescind? So we have a vote on the floor to rescind resolution 678 of 2011. Diane, can we have a vote on that?
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
I think we've had many discussions on this, but I'll vote yes to rescind it just so we have another discussion.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution has been rescinded.
It's 678's rescinded. Bob, I don't know if you want to formally draft something for that. It's rescinded.
Well, it's rescinded.
The resolution's
What
rescinded.
happens with this gentleman coming back to work now?
Let's not have that conversation here.
It's
Not-
important
not-
information.
yes, it is,
we
but not in this, not in this
I'm not
context.
sure if the vote was even proper, given the fact that you already passed it, but.
Well, we just passed a resolution to rescind it.
Yeah, that's.
No different than any other resolution we do to rescind.
I mean, we're gonna have to stop paying. I know
That's-
we're not supposed to discuss this, but we're gonna stop paying this gentleman to sit home again until we pass another resolution. I'm just saying, that's the consequences that we could be facing.
Okay, can we call the
right now.
next resolution, because we can't have the
Okay.
Maybe we
conversation
can go-
now.
We have to,
And
resolutions.
we will draft the resolution rescind, have the town attorney will draft a resolution rescinding that.
Resolution 680.
Can we go into executive session and talk about this and then come back and continue the
Let's
town board meeting?
No, let's finish the town board meeting.
We can finish this, we got a
And
few
can
more
talk
left.
about it. Got a couple more
Whole
left.
special meeting, all right. 680, authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal agreement between the town of Riverhead and the Riverhead Fire District for sand and salt services. As amended, we put does not include walkways. So moved.
And seconded as amended.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Resolution 681.
Approves Chapter 90 application of Dark Side Productions, Inc., Haunted House Walkthrough, September 30th through October 31st, 2011. So moved.
And second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 682.
Excuse me. Authorize to extend contract to Weedell Sign Company Incorporated for signs for the town of Riverhead. So moved.
And I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 683.
This is authorizing payment to Ivy Acres Incorporated for landscape supplies for 2010 and 2011. So moved.
Moved
And seconded.
Oh, sorry. Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 684.
Authorizes town clerk to publish and post public notice for a local law to consider an amendment to Chapter 58 entitled Dogs of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
No.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 685.
Adopts a resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute agreements to provide the county of Suffolk with assurances related to the dredging of East Creek, Fox Creek, Miamago Lagoon, and at Baywoods Cove located within the town of Riverhead. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Unfortunately, this is the only way that we can get the county to dredge our creek, so yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yeah, I don't like it, doing this, giving the county carte blanche to dredge these creeks, to see to be dredged, but to relieve them of any damages and stuff that's happened. But to do this, and we need these creeks dredged, I vote yes.
Walter.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 686.
Authorize the waiver of a 30-day notification required by New York State Liquor Authority. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
As amended, removing now therefore be it in the second whereas, yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 687.
This authorizes town clerk to publish one-half page notice pursuant to New York State Sanitary Code. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 688.
Rejects bids and authorizes town clerk to republish and repost notice to bidders for water meters and accessory equipment to the Riverhead Water District. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 689.
Authorizes the supervisor to execute a stipulation with Local 1000 AFS CME AFL CIO Riverhead Unit of the Suffolk Local Number 852. So moved.
John?
Stipulation is this. Seconded.
Moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded. Did you second?
Yeah, I seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 690.
Motion to pay the bills. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
Okay, now we open the town board meeting up to public comment on anything.
I'd
you
just
wish-
like to make one
Oh,
comment before we start. Okay, give me a minute. I just want to tell all the bow hunters out there that we're going to have bow hunting at EPCAL this fall season, and it's going to run between October 10th to November 27th. Okay, but the important date is September 27th, and that's the day we're going to have the lottery. So you pick a time, a slot, when you can hunt. Just want to put that out there. And the hunting period will be about, the lottery's for like 1 week of hunting at a time. And it's going to be open only to Riverhead town residents.
William Tell.
Okay, sorry, should I
No, I
usually
did it
ask
again.
for reports.
You
Yeah.
went, we won't buy that. I said, I better catch it.
Yep, sorry about that.
Get that
Usually
out
ask
there
for
because we
reports.
want them to
Were
know when
there
that lottery date is.
Any other committee reports? No, okay. That's it? Newsday's gone?
I gotta get that online before anybody else beats me.
They already did it from here.
It's already done,
It's
Mitch.
done.
Public comments.
I'm gonna put it at the post office and mail it.
And that's what I would do as well. The
Touche.
post office.
We believe you.
We're opening it to public comment. We already have the gentleman up there for anything you wish to discuss. We ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes, and
We hope 5 minutes.
what's that?
Hope 5 minutes.
Okay, what's going on?
Okay, this is a community service.
Give us your name and for the
Ed
record.
Purcell, East Main Street, Riverhead. This is a community service notifications. We're having a blood drive, Roanoke Lodge, on the 17th of September, 9 till 1:30. The New York Blood Bank will be there to do it, and we're sponsoring it with the location.
Oh, okay. This is not the same as the community blood drive that Lauren and Michael Reichel are doing?
No.
Okay.
This is through the Roanoke Lodge.
Okay.
Now, Roanoke Lodge is part of the Independent Order of Odd Fellows, which most people don't know much about. It was originated in Europe. It came to the United States the first lodge was in Baltimore in 1819. It was the first lodge in Roanoke and Riverhead. Let's see. Roanoke Lodge was started in 1877 on May 30th. The meetings were held in the Masonic Lodge for the first 9 years. After that, Roanoke Lodge bought a building which still stands on Griffin Avenue It's not the building on the corner, it's the next building up. And we met there until 1929, when we built a building on the corner of 2nd and Roanoke Avenue. Actually, the town hall was in the building, as well as matter of fact, the first town board meeting I went was there.
When did the town hall leave, do you know? Ed?
I don't know.
Bob, when did you?
It left there when it came here.
Yeah.
So it was
In the 70s.
72, I think.
Okay, 70, yeah, probably 74 or something like that. What is your chartered purpose, you odd fellows?
Okay, I have some pamphlets so that you'll know just what we're about.
It has the weird eyes on the top of the building.
Yes, it does. Now,
That's odd.
some of the national members in the past were Ulysses S. Grant was a member, Harry Truman, and FDR, as well as Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren and Williams Jennings Bryan were all Oddfellows. Let's see.
Yeah, did they belong to your lodge?
No, not to our lodge, but some of the local families that have been members of the lodge were the Beebe family, Cravilles, let's see, the Reeve families, Goodales, Hulse, Young, Corwin, Cheshire, Griffin, Penny, Warner, Moore, Woodhull, as well as Saxteen.
Wow.
The Saxteens were members of the lodge.
So
and they were,
basically, like the founding members of this town.
yes, were charter members. And earlier, let's see, the rest of the information is in here, but we've been part of the community for a long time, but in the last 30, 40 years, we've been awful quiet, and we've decided to try to do more in the community.
How many members do you have now?
Statewide, we have about 3,000, not counting. There's also a women's division, even though men can belong to the women and women can belong to the men's division. The women's division is the Rebeccas. In New York State, we have 2 homes. We have a rehab center in the Bronx that we just built. I actually should say rebuilt. They tore the old one down and built a new one. And we also have an age home up in Lockport. We used to have children's homes. We still have a children's home over in Cambodia, where we have children who have been orphaned. If I'm not mistaken, I think it says in here that, let's see here, the Oddfellows and Rebeccas have spent over $775 million in relief projects annually.
Wow.
So we have an education foundation. The orphan home in Cambodia is the SOS Children's Village. We have Living Legacy that plants trees to enhance the environment. We have an arthritis foundation. This is all national stuff. Visual Research, United Nations pilgrimage to the UN, and annually we have a float in the Rose Parade. In New York State, we have some educational scholarships. We also have a program called the John C. Sable Heart Fund, where we give money to somebody who's involved in heart research, and it goes out of Rochester. And it's very prestigious because maybe the people who we give them the seed money, and they've got some very big grants from people with real money, not like the Oddfellows. But locally, we have under 100 people in the lodge, but we own the building, and we've been there, as I say, for a long time.
And I think it's important to point out you're a fraternal organization.
We are a fraternal organization, like the Masons, like the Moose, the Elks. We do a lot of good things around.
Well,
but just to let everybody know about the blood drive, and here's some phone numbers.
Did you post it on the bulletin board out
Yes, this was on the bulletin board.
Okay.
And I'm going to put it back, but I put it up here so that people could see it.
Give us the time and location again.
Yep. It will be on the corner of the building, on the corner of, it's called 220 Roanoke Avenue, the corner of 2nd Street and Roanoke Avenue. It's the big 3-story brick building You can't miss it.
With the eyes.
With the eyes on it. It'll be on Saturday, September 17th from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And the phone numbers that you can reach if you want to call ahead and get a time is the guy who's running it is the head of the lodge this year, Michael Barr. He's from Shoreham. His phone number is 744-1442, or his cell number is 702-0131. Thank
Ed,
you.
feel free to come by anytime, discuss the organization.
Well, I have some copies for you. Yeah.
Absolutely, feel free to come.
Anybody's free to donate blood, we need blood.
They won't let me donate anymore. All right. Mr. Scalzo, you're up.
Yes, sir. Again, I was so excited to see you folks. Since April I haven't seen you, so I couldn't wait to get up here.
Still got that Florida tan.
Yes, sir. Just came back. What I'm here for is, as I started to say before, a couple of weeks ago I saw an episode on the TV show Top Gear, and part of the segment was filmed here at one of the runways at EPCAL. I want to commend the board on maybe changing your policy a little bit and welcoming some interim income. And I would also like to once again appeal to you for something that really could shape the future of the EPCAL site. And as you know, I'm going to get into the drag racing thing once again. My appeal today is not to allow you or to ask you to allow a drag strip at EPCAL, although you know that's my ultimate goal. I'm once again appealing to you to allow a 15-minute sound test at EPCAL, which will be not unlike what was done over a 2-day period by the Top Gear folks. And again, I thought that was excellent, very enjoyable show. Again, the purpose of this to see if we will have a negative impact on the cemetery, and I know that is a big, big, big issue. And again, I am here to appeal. If it was okay for the Top Gear folks to run their thing, which again I say was good, they came, they were done, they left. My proposal, what I'm trying to do is let's see if we're going to have a negative impact. Allow me to do this sound test, 15 minutes, and if it will take the same amount of monies as they paid you for 1 day's use, I'm willing to pay the same.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard today? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion, we close the town board meeting.
All in favor? No. Aye. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Actually, we